Teenagers all across America face it every day. It ranges from cheating on a test to robbing a convenience store, from smoking a cigarette to shooting up heroin. Peer pressure is a serious, real-life situation that everyone encounters at some point in their life. And let's face it, just say no is not always that easy. The word peer, according to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, is one belonging to the same societal group, especially based on age, grade, or status. The word pressure is described as the burden of physical or mental distress. So what does this mean in layman's terms? Peer pressure is basically encouraging people similar to you to make certain choices, take certain actions, or conform in some specific way. In general, peer pressure is thought of to be an act that many people succumb to in order to feel accepted or included. The number one form of peer pressure is substance abuse. Tobacco, alcohol, and illegal drugs are all substances that teenagers are pressured into using and abusing. Most teenagers who try alcohol do so around the age of 13, 8 years before the legal drinking age. The American Lung Association reports 3.1 million teenagers smoke. Approximately 30% of teenagers are offered, given, or sold drugs in high school and middle school. These are some very disturbing statistics. We'll talk more later about the negative consequences of these substances. Another huge pressure that most adolescents face from their peers is sex. Over 50% of 12 to 17-year-olds feel pressured into sex and relationships. It's hard enough dealing with young love and relationships when you're a teenager, but adding the pressure of having sex into the equation makes things very much more complicated. One of the most emotional peer pressures we face are related to image. The way we dress, our height, our weight, how we act, who we hang out with. These are all things that define us that we can ultimately be pressured into changing. Bullying and teasing go hand in hand with how we feel about ourselves. Self-esteem takes a huge blow when peer pressure causes us to change who we are. The final peer pressure we're going to discuss is behavior. Teenagers are pressured into all sorts of negative behaviors, from lying and cheating to stealing and vandalism. Things we would never do on our own become our actions when others pressure us into doing them. While I mostly want to discuss the negative forms of peer pressure and their repercussions, I think I should also mention some positive forms of peer pressure. We know that peer pressure means encouraging people similar to us to do certain things, but it doesn't always have to be bad. Some good forms of peer pressure include encouraging your friends to participate in sports or other activities, or even volunteering together. Convincing someone to tell the truth, helping someone with homework, or encouraging kids at school to come to church are all very positive forms of peer pressure. Now that we've talked about some of the different types of peer pressure, let's discuss why it is such a troubling issue. It's all about fitting in. That's the number one reason we succumb to peer pressure. Teenagers are naturally afraid of rejection. They want to feel like they belong and that they are cool. While it's perfectly normal to want to fit in, it doesn't mean you have to change who you are or sacrifice your beliefs and your values. When you give in to peer pressure, you lose yourself. You're giving up your free will and your voice. You're falling through the cracks just to be like somebody else. But why be somebody else when you can be yourself? Everyone is unique and individual in their own way, and it's so important to keep that individuality. Otherwise, you become just another person who couldn't stick up for themselves. But it's not always just about you. Think about the other people you affect when you make bad decisions because someone pressured you into it. You will not only disappoint yourselves, you will disappoint parents, friends, brothers, sisters, teachers, even people at church. Whether you realize it or not, people look up to you. Even adults look up to teenagers based on their actions. When you give in to peer pressure, you're letting down those around you who thought they knew you better. While your own sense of self and the admiration of those around you are very important things to consider, you also need to think about some more serious consequences of peer pressure. Alcohol, tobacco, and illegal drugs are all addicting. They are dangerous to your health in many ways and are often very hard to quit once you've become dependent upon them. The use of those substances can lead to negative consequences such as cancer, alcoholism, drug overdose, and even death. I'm not trying to scare you, I'm just trying to make you aware of how dangerous these substances can be. Not only does peer pressure affect your health and safety, it can also affect your criminal record. Being pressured into doing anything against the law can have serious legal repercussions no matter what your age is. There's punishment for crime such as vandalism, theft, breaking and entering, harassment, assault and battery, even homicide. These are all crimes committed by teenagers each year, and every illegal act could potentially put you behind bars. Since we're starting to get a feel for the seriousness of peer pressure, it's time we tackle some ways to rise above it. Talk about it. There is always someone around to listen or give advice. We have all been pressured many times in our life, and we know it's not easy to say no. That's what your friends and family are for, to give you advice and to listen to your problems. We're not here to judge or place blame. Everyone wants you to be safe and happy, so please talk to someone when you feel pressured into doing something. Spending time with your friends and family is another way to avoid peer pressure. By surrounding yourself with positive influences and role models, you will be avoiding the negative ones. Keep yourself busy and away from situations in which you might be pressured. This can also include joining a team or group, playing a sport, finding a hobby, or volunteering. These are all great ways to avoid peer pressure, but the fact of the matter is we cannot avoid it in every situation. There will come a time when you are pressured into doing something that you know is wrong. This is when the most important person steps in, you. You are your own person and you make your own decisions. So when you know something is wrong, it's up to you to have enough respect for yourself to walk away. Self-respect is the #1 thing that will deter you from peer pressure. If you're having trouble with self-esteem or self-respect, seek counseling. Talk to someone about your problems. Keep a journal. This will help you examine your feelings and how you feel about the situation around you. Take it from me, being a teenager is tough. It's one of the hardest parts of your life, and nothing can take away the troubled times that you will come across. But you can face them with a positive attitude and respect for yourself. You're the only person that can say no when you're presented with something, so you must always remember that it's in your hands. You've heard it over and over again. Just say no. It's not always that easy or that simple, but it's your life that you've got to think about. So even though it's never going to go away, you can personally make peer pressure a thing of the past. A good support group, a strong sense of self-worth, and a lot of willpower can keep teenagers like you out of trouble. Saying no really can be that easy when you recognize that your reputation, your future, and your life is at stake. Just always remember to tell yourself that it's not worth it, but you are.